All right. Sorry everyone, that took a while to move around and set everything up. This is my second time live streaming it, so welcome everyone to another live stream. Um, so just some technicalities before we get into the main stuff. I did notice that the audio that was being recorded through just my laptop's microphone in the last stream was not very great. So this time I am trying to do it with my headphones. So I hope that the audio quality is slightly better. I do have a microphone as well, but it has a USB input port in it, and my new laptop only supports USB-C. So I need to wait until I get the USB-C to USB adapter. So that's gonna take a while. But until then, we are live here. So don't worry. I am still considering if I should also go live on Instagram or not, because I'm not sure how useful it will be, because I do mainly want to do a screen share and talk about Web3 over this, like a screen share where people can sort of see what's happening. So maybe for this time, I'm not gonna do a Instagram live, as it might be more distracting than helpful. I'm gonna focus on just building Web3 out, or understanding your Web3, and keep the focus on just the stream here. Probably other streams that also it just includes me more talking, and people don't necessarily need to see the screen. I can also probably do Instagram live as well, uh, which might mean that I might not have as many people tuning in, but the idea is to build audience slowly over time. So hopefully we do have people who are like a lot more interested in the kind of content that I'm sharing, where it's more of also exploring things together. Um, there was something last time that I was also told that people were not able to comment on my um, stream, and now that I see that is true, I'm gonna see how I can change that. I don't know why can I not enable comments. How do I enable comments in my stream? Hmm. Yeah, does anybody know how to enable comments in your stream? Yeah, if you guys want, if you can hold on, we're gonna quickly Google that. How to enable chat when streaming through OBS. So that's pretty much how much of a noob I am. How to add stream chat open Twitter? No, YouTube streaming. Don't have time to watch a video. Oh, yeah. If it's gonna take too much time to figure out, we're just gonna ignore it, and I'm gonna figure it out before the next stream, guys. But yeah, I'm just gonna see if there's an easy way to do it. The asks you to copy your thing. Very weird. I do have this chat component here, but when I do see, it says that the chat aspect of my stream is disabled. I'm not sure if that's a OBS thing, or if that is a thing with YouTube itself that I need to change. Yeah, let me figure this out, because if I can figure it out, then it's gonna be for the better for all of us. And I also am not sure if the audio is being picked up from my microphone or not. So there are a few things I'm gonna check, some tech checks, as we are figuring out how to stream also. So you guys are just seeing some the screen right now. Yeah, I probably should have done this beforehand. All right, sorry. We're gonna figure that out later because yeah, it is not super straightforward as to how to stream audio. So we're going to keep the focus on the research that we want to do at hand. Um, so yeah, it is today is my stream number two. Actually, let me take it from the top so that I can edit out all of this other nonsense that we have been talking for so long. So welcome everyone to another stream. Um, this is the second time I'm going to do a live stream, and this is probably a bit more of a reflection into what is the kind of streams I want to do going forward, which is mainly spending an hour or a couple of hours doing a deep dive into specific topics, sort of understanding it a bit more, breaking it down, but also getting our hands, dirty. So I do want to see how we can first, like learn and eventually then also sort of create things together. So this is sort of my way into start exploring that. We will start first with understanding things before we just jump into your creating things. So today, the idea for the stream is to do a basic bit of foundational understanding of what is Web3. So if you are anywhere in active internet community or in your tech community, you probably have heard the term Web3 floating around. A lot of people are talking about it. So we're gonna try to break down what Web3 is so that we sort of understand the foundations of it, right? So we're gonna go from first principles to really know what makes something Web3, what doesn't make something Web3, and also understanding the history of it, like what was your Web 1 and Web 2, and how is Web 3 different from all of those previous versions of the web, and is if it is in fact better or if it's all just hype, because uh, anyone who's been in the technology space knows that there's always a bunch of like noise amidst the signal. So it could very well be a fad and a hype and something that is going to have a short-lived shelf life. But I think it is still important for us to deep dive and understand what is a Web3 and like what all the excitement or the fuss is about. Um, so let's start with that. Let's just start with understanding Web3. This is going to be for somebody who is even completely a noob or somebody who hasn't really, who has no background information or like knowledge about this. I'm going to really start this from scratch because even though I have read a few things about Web3 in the past, I still haven't really taken out time to properly research it. So this is sort of also me doing that from the very foundational basis. So I think that's what we're going to do today, and we're going to do it together. We're going to just really go through and understand what Web3 is, and we're probably going to wrap it up with summarizing for ourselves what I think is the sort of advantages and opportunities and sort of challenges of Web3, and see where the trend could head and what could be exciting for the future. Before we begin, why is it important for us to do this, and like, why should we understand, like more about these new technology or fad that sort of often comes around? Because I very strongly believe that it's super important to be ahead of the curve. You always need to know what the next big thing is going to be, because if you only know of them after they have become big, you're already too late, and there is a bunch of opportunity in every space that you've already probably lost by that point. So for me, that's always been a very exciting aspect to really understand what is the future and where are we headed um, into the future. There is a famous quote by this ice hockey player that Steve Jobs quotes often, Wayne Gretzky, I think. Um, Let me look it up. Wayne, yeah, Wayne Gretzky Caring, yeah. So this is the quote. I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been. This was a quote when somebody probably asked him, why he's such a good ice skating player, and this was his response. He's like, I'm not skating towards, sort of off like where the puck has already been, but instead towards where it's going to be. And I think that is what we all should be aspiring to do as well, sort of always imagining what the next big thing is, like what is the next pool of opportunities that's going to open up, and doing our best to be there, right? It's like, imagine if you were the one of the people who are able to guess that apps are going to become a big thing, right? And you really started to develop like your skill set in the field of making apps, or if you were the one of the early people who understood like blockchains or your cryptocurrency is going to become the next thing, and if you were able to sort of develop your skill sets towards that, or going even further back, like when people didn't think your computer would be a big thing, right, or the internet would be a big thing, and if you were one of the early people who could really see the true pure potential of internet before everyone else, how much of opportunities sort of like that would have unlocked for you. So I think that's what this attempt is sort of understanding, is your Web3 where the puck is going to be in the future, or it's just another hype that's going to fade away as quickly as it came in. Um, so let's deep dive. What I am going to do is I have this Notion page where I'm going to take down your notes. I'm going to also make it publicly available after. So everything that we're looking for is going to be available at this link. So we sort of are able to document and put some structure into this whole episode of the streams. And then what I do like usually is ending up with some sort of a presentation. I'm a big a sucker for very well made, sort of like presentation decks. So maybe at the end of it, we can see if we can make a presentation deck out of this together, or we can also do that, or I can also do that separately in another episode, depending on how long it takes us to understand the fundamentals of Web3 itself. Um, yeah, so without any further ado, let's just jump in and let's sort of do our best to break down what Web3 is. And I think the first thing to really understand before understanding Web3, or at least I think the aspects of Web3 I would like to understand and break down more, would be what is the history of it. So what has led to Web3, uh, like what has like led to the creation of Web3. I would like to understand like the foundations of it, like what makes Web3 Web3. When is a software, a tech, or a company a Web3 company, and when is it not? Then I'm going to go into the opportunities that we think Web3 can unlock. Like, why is because the excitement is, of course, around opportunities that Web3 has. So we're gonna figure out what are the opportunities that is available with Web3, and then going in with the challenges, right? So let's start with these as the big building blocks that we want to understand by the end of this episode. And if we're able to get a good understanding of this, we can see if we need to dig in more deep and understand the subsections of any of these. Cool. All right. Let's dive in. So let's go in. The way to do this is, of course, find some good articles. So my really interest in uh, Web3 started with this super neat podcast that I read by Chris Dixon and Naval Ravikant. You probably all have heard of it as well. If not, I would say that's a good your primer as well. I'm gonna just make a column here for references, let's say, where we'll just put all the links of stuff that I'm talking about so you can go through it. So first one was so it was a Tim Ferriss podcast with Chris Dixon, uh, who is at the moment a partner at Anderson Horowitz, the venture capital firm. He is somebody who has been one of the very early supporters of blockchain and of cryptocurrency, and that sort of is the kind of companies he invests in. Was one of the early investors in stuff like Coinbase, and I think overall he is a very you know he is somebody who I think, like I mentioned in the previous episode, he is somebody who is able to explain with clarity very complex topics. Right? I think that's like one of of the skills I admire in people is the ones who are able to explain complex topics in a very easy to understand your format. I think he does that very very well. There's this beautiful article, and I'm already digressing, but if you have time, you should read this article by Chris Dixon. It's called Toys. Yeah, it's called The Next Big Thing Will Start Out Looking Like a Toy. I did make a presentation out of this where I really spoke about how the reason why I am excited about anything like new, even if it's frivolous. I spoke a lot about why I thought Pokemon Go was such an exciting thing, uh, not because of the fact that it was just a game on phone that was making people addicted, but sort of the opportunities that could unlock. And I also uh, always ask people to refer to this topic when I'm talking about stuff like TikTok. Like when people are very sort of all dismissive about TikTok or like Snapchat being like a teenage thing, something for the kids, something that it doesn't have any value to the society. I always sort of refer them to this article, which really talks about how every big advancement in technology always starts out looking like a toy, which is just stuff people are doing for fun. But then it's only eventually the value of it is your unfurled. So if you guys are interested, I can do a separate episode where I actually do deep dive into this because this is something that I speak and discuss about very passionately. So if you do want a whole other session where we just sort of after break this article down, we can do that. But I'm going to paste the link for that here right now. Chris Dixon article. I think it's better if I just do stuff like if I just whoops. I don't want it to be bold. And does Notion have that smart thing where if I just, oh man, I'm gonna open all my things. If I just paste the, no, it doesn't have that, is it? So some apps have this really cool thing. If I select something and oh, it does. So yeah, this is like a UX which I really like. If I select a text and if I have in my clipboard a link, it's automatically going to like make the text a link. But coming back to the Tim Ferriss podcast we were talking about, and like Chris Dixon. So yeah, I think this was the article which I had like read long back that like made me a big fan of this guy and the way he explains things. But the other person on this is Naval Ravikant. Naval Ravikant, I think, is also one of those uh, technology philosophers, I think is the right way to describe him. So he is somebody who sort of talks about things that are at the intersection of technology and and philosophy. Um, and I have a yeah like I think a lot of things he says is good, but then I think also a lot of things he says are very abstract. So there are some things of him that I really, really admire, but then there are a few things of him which I feel is that he's being very intentionally abstract and very, like, yeah, it's almost like a meme, to talk like Naval, where yeah, there are a few things he says which are just very simple things, but because just like he puts it in different words, it sounds like a profound thing, but it's really not. But all that said, he is somebody who has been at the heart of a lot of technological developments. He is like the founder of AngelList, and he's angel investor in a whole bunch of different startups. So he is somebody who has a very good perspective of what's going around in technology and what are the new startups that are popping up, and he does sort of view them with a philosophical lens as well, which I think is pretty important because that's sort of how you're able to make a projection of a trend where you're not just looking at what the technology can do as of today, but you're also able to understand how the technology will affect behaviors of people and how the society will evolve depending on how this technology will evolve. I think that's something that he does a pretty good job of breaking down. So they both are on this a podcast by Tim Ferriss, and they're talking about Web3. Let's find that. Tim, actually, I'm going to open everything in a new tab so that by end of it we see actually how many tabs we have opened. Tim Ferriss, Naval, Chris Dixon. Yeah, it's called The Wonders of Web3, and how to pick the right hill to climb, find the right amount of crypto regulations, friends with benefits, and blah, blah, blah. So that's basically like the podcast that I would recommend all of you to listen. It is a long one. It's, I think, about, yeah, it's at 2 hours and 31 minutes. So it is something that's long, and that's one of the good things about podcasts, and that's one of the things that why I'm doing these like long format streams, because it does go deep into topics, and it's more of a free flowing conversation than like a well neatly put like TED talk. So it does explore the depths of things a bit. So I think that is a good primer for people to begin with. And all my sort of current information about Web3 started from that podcast episode, and then from there is where how it has evolved, and everything that I'm currently excited about is because of the seed that was that had come from that podcast. So I'm going to first break down what they explain in the podcast. Of course, we don't have 2.5 hours to listen to that podcast right now, but I'm pretty sure there are articles that talk about it. So the first thing we'll do is just Google Web3 and see what pops up, right? Um Wikipedia article, that's always a good place to start. What does Wikipedia say about it? Web3, also known as Web 3.0, is an idea of a new iterative World Wide Web that incorporates decentralization based on blockchains. Some technologists and journalists have contrasted it with Web 2.0, wherein they say data and content is centralized in a small group of companies, sometimes referred to as big tech. The term was coined by 24 the term was coined in 2014 by Ethereum co-founder Gavin Wood, and the idea gained interest in 2021 from cryptocurrency enthusiasts, large technology companies, and venture capital firms. I think that's a very like neat summary of Web3 actually. So I like that. I'm going to just copy and put this. I'm just going to copy the first definition. I think this is like a simple one uh, that explains it. Actually, let me get the whole paragraph. Cool. I think the last just sentence of this is very important, and I think we'll dig into it together. I think, yeah, I want to make a column up front called definitions, right? I think that's the most important thing when we come into something new is sort of like define how people are defining it. Um, so I think let's just have a sub here which says Web3, right? And we'll just say how different people are defining Web3. So here's how Wikipedia defined it. Right, and this whole thing, can I make this a quote? Cool. I'm gonna leave it like that. So that's how Wikipedia defines it. So yeah, I think the two key important words are, it's a decentralized and it's based on blockchains, in contrast to Web 2.0, which is a centralized in a few companies. So we will dig deep into that. I didn't know that this was a term that was coined by the co-founder of, of Ethereum, Gavin Wood. But yeah, as you can see, it is something that has gained a lot of traction in the recent past. And we'll see if this enthusiasm is valid or hype. Um, cool. I think let's just skim through the rest of the article as well. Web 1 what refers to Web 1.0 and Web 2.0 refers to eras in the history of the World Wide Web as it evolved through various technologies and formats. Web 1.0 refers roughly to the period from 1991 to 2004, where most websites were static pages, and the vast majority of users or consumers, not producers of contents. Interesting. Web 2.0 is based on the idea of web as a platform, and centers on user created content uploaded through social media and networking service website. Web 2.0 is considered to have begun around 2004 and continues to this current day. Interesting. I think let's document this in a better way, and I think this is what we wanted to actually recover in history, but I think background is a better term for it. Background. Yeah, it just seems like I'm just replicating a Wikipedia article on this Notion page, but I think we will make it more neater. So let's just make a table here, and I think that's better to explain it. How do I add a table? Yeah, so Notion has this new table thing, which is sometimes good, but sometimes it's very hard to figure out things. I need a header row. Cool. So this is Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, right? Um, so Web, how do I make it big? Nope, that was not the way to make it big. So I think this is the biggest it gets. Cool. So Web 1 is what they say is the one that's the very first World Wide Web, right? As it came into place. So it's 1991 to 2004. So I think that's a very interesting timeline. So 1991 to 2004. So I think, and this is, they say 2004 to present. And then I think Web3 is, so let's just say 2021 into the future, right? So that it just started um, last year. I think all the hype around it, but of course there were people working on blockchain and crypto before that. But I think that's roughly the timelines that we're looking at. And Web one, let's see which were the companies that were operating in 1991, right? It was like the old school boys. It was Hotmail. I think it's basically like Microsoft. Yahoo was huge. Apple, of course. I think Google was also. before the decentralized era. When was Google founded? Google. Oh, Googling Google. Founded in 1998. Yeah, so Google is also Web 1 era. And then I think Web 2 is what's defined. And yeah, I like the Wikipedia's definition of this. Where most websites were static web pages, right? So that's, I think, the big thing. So these were just static web pages that, and the vast majority were just consumers, not producers of content. So it was very consumer heavy. I think people didn't. It was not very accessible to make things, right, in that era. Like you could go to Google, you could go to like Wikipedia, you could go to Yahoo and all of that, and you can just be a consumer. But I think as a producer, you didn't have ways to uh, put out the stuff that you're building out into people at mass, right? You could still send emails to one another. I know all the MSN chats and the Yahoo chats and all of those were there, so you could still do like one-on-one communication, but I think it didn't really have that sort of like like of a broadcast facility back then where everybody could be a content creator. I think that's sort of the big difference between Web 1 and Web 2 is that Web 2 allowed you to be a creator of your content, whereas in Web 1 you were just a consumer of content. Um, so I think this I would define it as let me just add one more column towards the right here. So we know what these things that I'm writing are. How do I move this guy there? And I want to make this into a header column. So this is the era. These were examples. Who was it for? So this was for consumer, and this is for content for producers, right? So creators. And here the companies would be Facebook. Uh, I think there were others before that, like Orkut and whatnot, but I think we'll just talk about ones that are alive today. So YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And as I'm writing this, you could probably already see what the problem with Web 2 is that people are talking about is that Facebook and Instagram are the same company, like they're owned by them. YouTube is owned by Google and Twitter. So there are just this handful of big companies that own everything, which is actually similar to what was happening in Web 1 as well. There were just these few big companies who were working on it. And in Web 2, they became a platform. But even when they became a platform, they were just the platforms for that were still a centralized platform, right? That's the issue that people are having with Web 2 is that there's too much of a power that is with very few people. Um, so here there is one thing that was in the podcast that was very interesting the way they defined it. So it's about what could you do, right? Like what could you do in Web 1? And in Web 1 you can read, right? You can just be a reader. You just are able to read what other people have already put on. And I'm using the term a read as a generic term for, for like watch and for like listen. But yeah, you were mainly a consumer, so you could just like read stuff that's out there. Uh, and then what happened in Web 2 was you can also write, right? Like you can, of course, read, but in addition to read, you can also write stuff to it. So you're not just you're like reading stuff; you're also writing stuff. And what Web3 has done is that, in addition to becoming a consumer and a creator, what it says is that you can also be an owner of things, right? Like you can own your own things. But I think we'll start filling this out once we get a better understanding of it, because I think it could be confusing to know how you own things in Web3. But that is the promise. But yeah, in Web2 you could read and you could write. So if here you were a consumer, here you could still be a consumer, but it also gave you the power to be a creator. And I think that sort of is what you could already see in the way of things becoming already a bit more decentralized in the way of it working, is that becoming a creator became more accessible, like, and it became more decentralized. It was not just a few big people who were in a control of the content that's going to go out, but the content that is going to go out can be decided by anyone and everyone. Like, you could become a creator. Like, if you have a camera and if you can make videos, you have the right now to publish that video to your millions of viewers around the world. You no longer, like, you need a spot on a TV program, or you no longer sort of like need approval from publishing a platform to be able to put your content out there. The fact that I'm able to do a live stream, right? That's such an insane thing. Like, such thing was only available if you are a news channel, or a media agencies. This is before 2004 era, of course, I'm talking about. And after 2004, I'm actually able to become my own sort of like own or media channel, right? Like, if I am somebody who's aspiring to be a journalist or a reporter, I don't have to go work with a big news agency. If I have the chops, I can do my investigative reporting, and with the help of these platforms, I can broadcast my stuff. And I think all of you have observed it, right? Like, I think all of you have seen this new crop of influencers, or the content, or sort of the creators that have just popped up, and how that has become a full-time job for people, where these are these self-made people who are just who all started off, most of them started off by simply recording themselves on their phone. They were able to build an audience, and then that's how they grew. So I think that sort of was the big uh, aspect of Web 2, where it was a leveling your playing field, right? Like, if you are entertaining enough, if you have the ability to entertain people, and if you have the ability to make a content that's exciting, you can put it out, and you can now build the distribution. So the distribution was no longer a bottleneck, because a Web 2 as a platform offered everyone a chance to be a creator. And I think that is something that was amazing about Web 2. The flip side of that was that all of them happened on few sort of a platform which are owned by just few people. So what happens in that case is everything that you make, even though you are able to do like distribute it for free, you don't own it. And I think that's what is the other thing that Web3 is trying to solve, is that there is no proof or way of you owning the content that you make. Which means, if you make a video, like this video that I'm putting out is not owned by me. It's owned by like YouTube, just because I'm broadcasting on YouTube. And if you dig deep enough in the terms of and conditions, any video uploaded on to like YouTube now owns the videos. They have the rights to the video. And I think that's true for all the platforms. Like, any platform you go and you put out some of the content, whether it's a picture on Instagram, or if it's a meme on your Facebook, whatever, you no longer own the content. There is no proof of ownership of content. There is no your contract that says that you own this content. And I think that's what people are talking about, is something that a Web3 could solve with proof of ownership, is that you cannot just read, and you cannot just write, but you're also able to own these things that you make. It's very interesting how that is something that people are going to start to care about, because now that they all know that the distribution is something that they have become accustomed to, I think the next thing is, hey, I want to own everything that I put out, which is a very interesting aspect that Web3 is trying to bring in. Let's see, anything else that we want to talk with regards to the background aspect of it? What else defines Web 2? So I think, yeah, social media. I think that's a good thing to add as well. What were they? Like, what were the. How do I just insert one column below? Oh, nice, insert below, of course. What was it? So this was like static web pages is what Web 1 was mostly determined by. This was social media is what Web 2 was mostly defined by. Um, what else does it say? Web 2 beyond web as a platform, yeah, like we said, and central user created content. I think that's interesting aspect. So it's the content created by the user, uploaded to social media, blogs, wikis, among the services. Web 2.0 is generally considered to have begun around 2004 and continues to current day. Terminology Web3 specifically applies to Web3 was coined by in 2001, gained popularity. Okay, this is not as important. Concepts. I think, yeah, let's go into concept part of it. Oh, by the way, I got this nice a tea yesterday from the Oriental store. It's a black tea, and I really like it. This was not a paid sponsorship, but whoever is making this tea, if you guys would like to approach me for a sponsorship, please hit me up. All right. Concept. Specific visions of Web3 differ, and the term has been described by Bloomberg as a, as a hazy. Yeah, so I think that that's a part of the problem. Yeah, it is vague, and people always would like to jump on a bandwagon, and so yeah, I'm not surprised that it's hazy. Because if it's hazy for me, somebody who is in the tech space, I'm pretty sure it's hazy for more people out there. But they revolve around the idea of a decentralization and often incorporate blockchain technologies such as various cryptocurrencies and non-fungible tokens, NFTs. Uh, so a Bloomberg has described Web3 as an idea that would build financial assets in the form of tokens into the inner workings of almost anything you do online. Interesting. Bloomberg has described Web3 as an idea that would build financial assets in the form of tokens into the inner workings of almost anything you do online. Interesting. That would build financial assets in the form of tokens. Okay. Not fully clear what that means, but I think that's a good article for us to go to. What you need to about Web3. Yeah, perfect. Let's go to that next. But I do want to take this as the other definition of Web3 and put it in our definitions page. Uh, and this is Bloomberg. What did it say? An idea? Idea that. Cool. Um, some visions are based around the concept of decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs. Hmm. I think those are like all individual episodes, right? So the NFT is something we need to deep dive into separately, and your DAO is something, and decentralized finance, DeFi, is another concept in its user exchange currency without bank or government involvement. Self-sovereign identity allows users to identify themselves without relying on an authentication system such as OAuth, in which trusted party has to be reached in order to assess identity. Gotcha. Yeah, so I think it is something that's a whole bunch of different things masquerading as one. So I think you probably have heard of all of these things, right? So you have definitely heard of NFTs, the non-fungible tokens, which is basically a contract on a blockchain that everybody can verify, which is now being used in the art space to buy and sell digital arts. But yeah, I think that's definitely something we need to deep dive on its own. The other interesting word or concept that we hear of is the decentralized autonomous organization, or a DAO as it's commonly called. And DAO is basically also fascinating because it's able to, yeah, I think that's also an episode in itself, but it's a fascinating concept where every user within an organization is offered tokens, and with because of the tokens they have and the weightage on those tokens, they are involved in all the decisions that the DAO makes, which is a bit like offering stake to people. But yeah, it's something that is but the issue of tokens is often you're dependent on something. So if you do some or you work for the organization, then you get like a bit more tokens. If you don't do any work, you don't get any tokens. So it can be more easily defined, which could actually lead to very interesting organizational structures, which were earlier very difficult to for us to pursue. Decentralized finance, a DeFi, or as it's commonly known. I think this is probably the one everybody has heard of most. Everybody has heard of Bitcoin at least, which is basically using blockchain and cryptocurrency as a way to conduct financial your business. So instead of paying your money, you pay people in Bitcoin. You have a currency exchange system. I think that's also very exciting as a thing, and probably yeah, like an episode on its own, because DeFi is definitely incredibly interesting. Had a lot of experiences with working with like banks and finances in the recent past, and I do want to strongly believe that we can build a more centralized financial system that is not bogged down by old archaic institutions, because any of you who has ever dealt with a bank, how slow so many things are, and how so many stuff or so many ways that the banks operate doesn't really make sense for the modern digital world that we live in. So there is a need to reinvent how we think about your money or your currency as a concept itself. And cryptocurrency could be a way to do that, but the way cryptocurrency is as of now, I don't think is the answer, because as of now, cryptocurrency is being looked at as a investment opportunity, as an asset that you can have as a get rich quick scheme, which is not the intention of, or at least that was never the original intention of any of these cryptocurrencies to begin with. Bitcoin was never an investment opportunity. It was supposed to be a currency you can actually use to trade. But given the fact that there has been massive fluctuations in the exchange rates of these cryptocurrencies, it has been used by people as a way to get insanely rich. And because it has happened a few times in the past already, people are still going to look at it as an investment opportunity, and not really as a tradable sort of currency, right? So if you have a Bitcoin, you're now your instinct is going to be to hold on to it in hopes that it's going to go up at some point, instead of using it as a currency to purchase something from Amazon, for example. So I think that's the like the mindset, a shift that needs to happen, where people are also okay to use Bitcoin or any of the other cryptocurrencies that are more stable, as a way to purchase things and as a way to like to trade, instead of holding on to them as if it is stock, because it's not, and there is no science behind when it will go up or down, right? Like when you invest in a stock of a company, of course it's largely driven by market sentiments, but there's also some underlying economics that you can look at to understand why should a company's stock be valued so much. But when it comes to cryptocurrencies, it's totally market sentiments. Like there's no underlying science that determines why should this coin be valued at this much. The value is totally determined by the market and what people are willing to pay, which is incredibly risky, and I think is something that is going to take a while for us to change that kind of a mindset. But I hope we do, because I think once we can achieve a decentralized finance, it's going to simplify so much things, and it could allow us to focus on what other applications can we do with the blockchain, apart from DeFi. So I do hope there is a clear, there is a winner at the end of this, so we can pick one or two cryptocurrencies that we would use as a currency across the world, and it's just not going to be like a wave of new of the coins that keep popping up every few years, and it just becomes a get rich quick scheme. Do I talk too fast sometimes? I think I talk too fast sometimes. I think I should try to talk slower. Cool. So I think that's a concept. I think it's still hazy. I think the way I'm going about it is also not very constructive, because I am talking about things without really explaining what Block 3 is. So I think I'm going to skip the rest of the thing, which is about how it was reserved. And let's go into this Bloomberg article and use that as a way to establish what's Web3. And then we can go from there to understanding it. This is going to be filled with ads. I'm going to paste it on Safari. So maybe we can use the reading mode to get rid of all of these aspects. Perfect. So this is something I love in Safari, that yeah, you just can take out all the noise and just focus on the article that you want to focus on. Cool. So let's jump into this. I'm gonna, how do I, well, I cannot fix that. Okay, I'm going to move this a bit more here, and I'm gonna, oh yeah, I can increase the font size a bit. Cool. Should be visible to everyone. Oops, shouldn't have done that. Or if I do, let me, cool. Perfect. Cool. What you need to know about Web3: crypto's attempt to reinvent the internet. Perfect. Enthusiasts say tokens can change. Before that, let me just turn on my lights. It's just getting darker and darker in here. I thought I had my lights turned on, but it didn't turn on. Much better. All right. What you need to know about Web3: crypto's attempt to reinvent the internet. Enthusiasts say token can change computing. Is this the real deal or vaporware? Vaporware is a term people use for when something is just like hype. So it's all just vapor, but there's nothing beneath it. If you follow the world of cryptocurrency, I don't know. Cool. Whoops, what did I do? If you follow the world of cryptocurrency, even casually, you know it produces a constant supply of jargon. There's NFT, DApp, DeFi, tokenomics, to name a few. Brace yourself for a new one. Web3. When was this article written though? December 10, 2021. So it's pretty recent, like a month back. The idea is that crypto isn't just sending money or speculating with, but could be used to build a whole new web. If the believers are right, this is one of the best. This is one bit of crypto speak without getting familiar with, even if you ever touch Bitcoin. If the believers are right, this is one bit of crypto speak worth getting familiar with, even if you never touch Bitcoin. Okay. Of course, the software behind the internet is challenging all the time. What makes Web3 different and more than a little weird is that it would build financial assets in the form of token into the inner workings of almost anything you do online. So this was the definition that was in the Wikipedia article. And by doing so, it's a booster say it could supplant corporations with decentralized internet-based organization governed by software protocols and the votes of token holder. So this is what I was referring to with a DAO, the decentralized autonomous organizations. Um, it's the first real consumer penetration for crypto, says Jeff Dorman, Chief Investment Officer of crypto fund Arca. So this is one of the problems with crypto. It's people who are really invested in the crypto are the ones who are singing, sort of the praises of it. But yeah, I think we come to that when we come to the the cons of it. Over time, every company became an internet company. I think this will happen here in digital assets. Interesting, right? So he says over time, every company became an internet company. Because when internet was first coming around, people were talking about how, yeah, internet is just a hype, just a fad. We, it will never become like the thing that everybody would, be interacting with. A lot of brick and mortar companies, right? Like who had a physical shop, who were actually selling physical goods, they always had this thing that we don't care about the internet. But then, as all of us know, like internet just became the big thing. Like you cannot not be a internet company, as in you cannot like it's very difficult for you to be a company and not have a presence on the internet, right? Even if you're doing something very obscure, you're selling your sort of like a metallic like fencing system, or you're selling something that's, I don't know, like air filters to hospitals. Anything that you sell, you need to have now a presence on the internet. Internet is where you attract your leads. Yeah, I think you guys all understand this point very well, is that every company is now an internet company, so you cannot like not be an internet company. And the people who understood this early on, people who understood the value of internet early on, are the ones who were able to really take advantage of that opportunity, right? People who understood this, like folks like Amazon, right? Amazon was one of the people who understood this very early on, saying that shopping is going to become an internet based thing. Like, of course, you'll still go to your supermarkets and stuff like that. But for a lot of things, you're going to just order stuff online. And Amazon really invested very heavily in that space. Like they were just a loss making company for the longest time, because they had this very strong belief in internet, saying that internet is where everything is going to happen. So if we are able to build the foundation and build the base, we will eventually we will eventually be the winner in the space, which they totally were able to do. But they're only able to do it because they put this big a risk, because ju- because the people who are at the top at Amazon had like the foresight to see that internet is going to become the way of things to come. And that's because of the reason why I am interested, and you should be interested in Web3, to see if Web3 is the next internet or not. and what will be the Amazon of tomorrow that is probably everybody is ignoring as of now. Skeptics, and there are m- many, say this is this stuff is a long way from approving its use beyond niche applications. Many of them tools aimed at crypto traders. Okay, so it's also talking about the skepticism that people have about Web3, where it says it's still too niche. Many of the tools are aimed at crypto traders, which I agree. A lot of the crypto apps now are just a trading app. So your Coinbase or any of these other your crypto apps either are a way for you to purchase and sell cryptocurrency or a wallet for you to store cryptocurrency. So there is not been too many applications of blockchain or your crypto than just them being a trading thing. So that's actually a very fair point, and something to consider. It may also be an attempt to get around a regulation at a time when a policymakers are gearing up to set rules for crypto. Interesting, right? So that's the other big con, which we'll go about in detail afterwards. Is So everything that you do good has a bad to it, right? So every time you bring something good, there are gonna be bad actors who will abuse the system. So one of the things that people are like looking at is that if you make sort of stuff like a financial a transaction a decentralized thing, then people can do financial transactions very anonymously. You can send your like millions of euro worth of a crypto from a country to another, and it's totally untraceable back to you. So, which is a great thing for the good actors. So, for people like us who really want to have that freedom where I don't have to ask a bank to send the money that I own somewhere. In that way, it's really good. But there are people who are bad actors or who have bad intention, who have what is called black money, and who do things that are illegal. So this makes it easy for them also to move around their funds, right? It can be your terrorist organizations, or it can be people who sell stuff like contraband. There could be so much of these things that are at the moment very difficult to do because the income tax authorities or the banks have heavy regulations to stop these things. But once you make it a decentralized things and there is no more oversight, that is the con of it, where people can actually abuse the system. And people who are rich and who have the means to abuse it, they will abuse it, right? Like whenever you hear about some super rich guy had an offshore account and stuff like that, like that is indication of the fact that if there is a loophole to exploit, the rich people will exploit it. And that's also something that people are afraid will happen with like crypto, because it's going to be like hard to almost impossible to regulate these things. There is a big chance of your misuse that's going to happen, and that is something that we will have to think about seriously as well. Because yeah, anything you put out into the world, there's good and bad. But the other way to look at it is, people were also saying similar things and very skeptical about stuff like that when when they're talking about internet, right? Like back in the day, they were like, oh, internet is going to be this free thing, it's the world wide web. Then people are going to do all kinds of illegal stuff on the internet. There's going to be all kinds of illegal stuff that people can have access to, so we should not have internet, right? That was the big thing, which is true. Like as you all know, internet does have bad things happening as well. There are a lot of illegal things that are present in the internet. There are dark your corners of the internet that exist that do a lot of illegal stuff. But when you zoom out and you look at things like largely, you have to ask yourself, has internet done more good for humanity or more bad for humanity? Has there been more benefits that we have had because of existence of internet, or there has been more abuse and more illegal stuff and more negative effects that we have had as a human society because of internet. I think this is also a very interesting topic for us to deep dive into at some point. But yeah, like off the top of my head, I feel it's been a positive. The kind of connected a world that we have today, the fact that I can, yeah, do anything at all is all because of the fact that internet exists. So I believe that it has done more like positive, but yeah, there will be negatives always. But the fear with Web3 is that those negatives are going to be unregulated because there won't be a traceability, which is going to be a big issue. Um, in some, Web3 is a heady like mix of creative new projects, techno utopianism, and financing and financial engineering. Here's the beginner's guide to what you need to know. I like this sentence as well, so I'm going to use it. So it's a part of the same article. Cool. Okay, let's jump into the beginner's guide. Why is it called Web3 or Web 1 and Web 2 again? The term Web 1 generally describes everything from earliest interconnection of computer networks in the 1970s and 80s to the first flowering of browsers and websites in the 90s. Hmm. So, in this definition of Web 1, it goes beyond 1991, or what was it, 1991. Hey, that's so interesting. So, 1991 was when I was born. So, interesting that Wikipedia article was talking about this as the year. So, I was born when the Web 1 was born. Fun fact. The term, but here it says it's anything. So Web 1 is like basic. So from the interconnection of computer networks from the 1970s, it's going all the way back to ARPANET and like the very early internet, all the way up to websites and browsers in the 90s. So it doesn't go beyond 90s in this definition. In the next phase, Web 2.0 companies built applications on top of that, from social medias to search engines to wikis, much of it based on content generated by users. Yeah, this is what we said. Web to social media to search engine, user generated content mainly. Although that made much of the web in one sense decentralized, which is what I was saying, that everybody had access to a distribution of stuff they were making. Most things still run through big companies. So even you do have the distribution, but you are dependent on the distributors, which are these fixed platforms. The idea of Web3 is to create software and platforms that aren't dependent on traditional companies and Web 2.0 business models such as advertising. That's an interesting component, like the second part of it. Uh, so these aren't dependent on the traditional companies on of like Web 2.0, which means you don't like need approval from the YouTubes, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Twitter to push your stuff out. So you're not dependent on them. So even if YouTube doesn't exist tomorrow, you can still push stuff. And the second thing it says is that it will also not be dependent on the traditional business models of Web 2.0, such as advertising, which is interesting. I don't know what other business models are, but I think we'll find out. But it says that advertising, which is mainly what Web 2.0 financials are dependent on, right? Now that I think of it, like you have ads that every one of these platforms are run by ads. That's how they make their money. So Facebook, Google, Twitter, YouTube are all ad driven platform. I think that's a good point to also note as a difference, which is the business model. What was the business model of Web 1? Good question. Mm, how a Yahoo, uh, Google, Google was making ads as well. So was Web1 also advertising? Was that the main business model of Web1? I think so, right? Microsoft was, of course, selling software. Apple was selling software. Google was not. Yahoo was not. So I think it was a combination of sale plus ads. Web 2 was mostly ads, I think. So you never needed to purchase anything on these platforms. These platforms still remain free for you to use, which means they were selling you to the advertisers. For example, users, I think my headphones are running low. So for some reason, my left headphone didn't charge. It was only 7%. So I might need to switch back to the shitty uh, microphone of the laptop. I'm not even sure if the microphone of my headphones are being picked up, but that's something I'm going to focus on later. Um, for example, users might pay for services directly using tokens. For example, users might pay for services directly using tokens. Ah, okay. In an ideal world, Web3 services are supposed to be operated, owned by, and improved upon by communities of users. As to why it's Web3 and not Web 3.0, chalk it up mostly to changes in how developers talk online. Ah, okay. But it's interesting. So they say that users will pay directly using tokens, right? So they're saying that if you want to get something on Web3, you're going to just pay for it using your tokens. And tokens could be cryptocurrency. So, for example, if you buy an NFT art, you just pay for it through Ethereum or whichever is the cryptocurrency that website or a foundation accepts. So I think that's what they're saying is that you just pay for it through tokens, which are also built on blockchain. What's this have to do with crypto? Bitcoin, the original cryptocurrency, works by having public database called blockchain record every transaction. Okay, so this it does assume that you do have basic understanding of blockchain and cryptocurrency. If you do not have that, maybe yeah, you can just watch. There are a bunch of really well explained videos now, which explains the blockchain. It does take a while to understand it, but the very simple explanation of blockchain would be that it is basically a register, a a register, a book that everybody can access and everybody can record stuff on it. So it's like a ledger which is out in the public for people to see, and every a transaction that happens on a public like ledger, and there is like so like blockchain is a and the way and the reason it's called cryptocurrency is called there is it is encrypted crypto sort of autographically. So it's very difficult to fudge the ledger. Like you cannot fake a transaction on the ledger. Yeah, I'm doing a very bad job at explaining it, but basically, blockchain is where once a transaction has been recorded and are verified, you cannot go back and erase that and say that this transaction never happened. It's all recorded, it's all available in the public, it's all a decentralized. So there is not like one accountant who is managing this ledger. Everybody who has access to the ledger can to manage the ledger. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what cryptocurrency is. There are a bunch of people who explain it in much better ways than I am. So if you do want to jump on any of those videos and come back, that's totally cool. Bitcoin, the original cryptocurrency, works by having public database called blockchain record every transaction. It's decentralized because this ledger is maintained not by one company, but by a vast network of computers all connected to the internet, whose operators are rewarded for the work with the chance to earn more Bitcoin. I think that summarizes it pretty well. But you can do more with blockchain than record a transfers of digital coins. You can use it to make contracts and control how software and apps work. So this is basically the evolution of cryptocurrencies as well. So sort of when a Bitcoin came along, which was the OG crypto in the space, it was intended as a transfer of a value where you can make a payment in terms of digital coins called the Bitcoins. Uh, then once that was incredible as a concept, when people started building on it, they said, in addition to just transfer of a value, it can also have your contracts that are placed in them, which means you can actually, because this ledger and because of all of this blockchains, because it's all software at the end of the day, you do have the option to build apps on top of those software. You can actually just sort of you can use the same underlying structure and build software around it to do specific actions and tasks by encoding a different contracts inside of this. Web3 applications are often based on a technology called Ethereum, which, like Bitcoin, rewards the users who help maintain its network. Its coin is called Ether, which has a total market value of $511 billion. The apps themselves can also have associated tokens, which may not only pay for services but act like voting shares that govern the app's development and even fee structure. At least early on, much of the incentive for this activity often is the chance for appreciation in tokens price. It might rise as more users join the community, but of course, it can also be inflated by speculations. There's a lot of that in crypto. So Ethereum is sort of the I don't say it's better than Bitcoin, but it's basically uh, Ethereum was a thought that people had after Bitcoin, saying that, hey, why cannot we also build a technology which is still based in blockchain, but the one that allows you to also have like contracts in it, which allows you to actually build applications on top of it. So Ethereum is sort of the technology that a lot of people use to build a lot of blockchain apps, and like it says that, which also means that people can issue their own tokens within these apps. So if you are on an app, you all get a token because of the fact that you're in an app, and the way for you to make like money is by exchanging those tokens for a function or a feature or as a voting right. But what could also happen is the value of the token itself could increase, then it can also be a tradable commodity. So to give you a very simple example, if something like like Twitter was built on Ethereum, and it offered every a user who joined it a token. So everybody got a Twitter your token as and when they joined, and then every time Twitter has to make a decision, right? It will say, okay, should we have an edit button or not in the app? Then everybody who owns a Twitter token can vote on it. And then if you're able to vote on it, then depending on what the vote says, that is something that Twitter would then implement. So that's sort of a way to use this token. But what could also happen is that if you were one of the early people who joined your Twitter when Twitter was not as big, and you got a token, but then as Twitter became bigger and more famous, the value of the token also increased. So if you were one of the early people, you had a Twitter or a token that were able to earn, and as more people join, the value of the token that you own increases, which you can now sell or sort of trade and do a whole bunch of other things with. And that sort of is what's happening in the crypto space, where if you're a part of a DAO or any of these early um, organizations, what they offer you is the tokens of their own organization, and with the promise that, hey, you are an early supporter, so you have these early your tokens, and as we grow big, the value of these tokens will also grow big. So you, as an early supporter, also gains to make a tangible value from it, right? So if you were the first user of of Twitter, or if you were the first 100 people who used your Facebook, you didn't get any value out of it, right? You were That was just a break, that was just a bragging rights. You probably got a username that you wanted, and that's it. But here, since they give you a tokens, which is a verifiable way that you are one of the early supporters, which can then be encashed at some later point. But as the last line says, that this does come with a pinch of salt, because this could also be a way of people just hyping up the token, because there's also a very good likelihood that the organization is going to go down to zero, and then all the tokens you have are meaningless and don't have any sort of value in them inherently. Why am I hearing about this? Gonna do a battery check. Why does it not show me my battery percentage? I think it's gone. I'm going to just take it out so that we don't mess with the audio for the rest of the thing. All right, can you hear me still? Is there a change? Is there a big difference? Okay, this is actually a good test. I can actually go back to the video and check how much is the difference between this. I'm also having a lo-fi music play in the background, because I think it's nice to have some sort of background music as we set the mood for this. So I think, yeah, let me know if you guys want that, or if you have a preference of what kind of like music we should play in the background when we do these things. Before, without further ado, let's go back. Also, yeah, I should probably slowly invest in a better camera as well. And I do have a microphone, so that's going to be fixed in the next stream, and then we'll see how it grows from there. Cool. Why am I hearing about this? The speculative boom is a big part of it, but it's also that people are starting to see the tech in real life. As Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies rallied earlier this year, venture capitalists poured billions of dollars into building and improving distributed apps, or dApps. So a dApp is basically a decentralized apps. Many so or dApp teams also received distribution of coins, which rose in value, spurring more interests. We are at the inflection point that will lead to an even faster pace of innovation and growth in Web3, says Ali Yahya, a crypto general partner at venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz. Bloomberg LP, which owns Bloomberg Business Week, has invested in Andreessen Horowitz. That's a nice disclaimer there. More than 87 more than 8,700 active dApps are listed on Tracker dApp radar. They include a lot of crypto trading platforms and games. Sometimes the line between those is fuzzy. Many games involve winning and trading non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, which are virtual characters or collectibles that can fetch sky-high prices. Operating through a distributed network can be clunky, but the user experience is getting better. It's still early, but it's been transformed in the last 6 months, says Jonathan Doughton, founding director of Starling Lab, a research nonprofit hatched out of Stanford University and University of Southern California Shoah Foundation, that's working on using cryptography and decentralized networks to help preserve and verify documents, including sensitive historical records. One of the group's project is to upload more than 55,000 video testimonies of genocide survivors to Filecoin, a distributed network where more than 3,500 providers around the world store files on the computers in return for FIL tokens. Interesting. The Starling Lab is now able to pour 3 times more data per day into Filecoin than at the beginning of year, says Dotan. Okay, that's a very interesting applications of Bitcoin, of a decentralized platform and blockchain. I've not heard of this before, so that's very interesting to know that it can be a way to
archive historical data which are verified. Interesting. In October, Dish Network Corp partnered with Helium Inc. for 5G wireless connectivity. Hotspot providers get paid in the token HNT for offering coverage. What people are starting to realize is that is this a very new opportunity that's reminiscent of Airbnb or Uber, says Helium Chief Executive Officer Amir Halim. The city of San Jose is setting up 20 Helium hotspots to earn HNT tokens to help cover internet access for some low income residents. Interesting. Oh, fascinating. Ah, so this is fascinating. So they're saying that if you offer your phone's internet, so if you have a data plan and you offer that as a hotspot to other people, then you earn these tokens called HNT tokens. Interesting. Which means that a lot of other regions will have internet because you're offering it through hotspot, and you earn these tokens which could be valuable at some point in the future. Hmm. Twitter's Inc. engineer are working on a blue sky, a decentralized version of social media. Yeah, this is something that I wanted to understand as well. So, a Twitter is themselves working on a decentralized version of Twitter. It's called Project Blue Sky. Um, which is actually interesting. I would want to know more about that, but I don't think this article goes into more depth into that. Gaming company Ubisoft announced on December 7 it will let players in one game get NFT collectibles such as vehicles for their characters. In other words, decentralized app will face plenty of competition from traditional web players. The biggest battle here is with big tech companies, says Aaron Brown, a crypto investor who writes Bloomberg Opinion. Okay. The financial incentive of these companies is basically to hijack Web3 with Web3 like versions of the app. Okay, so basically they're saying that Ubisoft is also doing this and it's offering NFTs and they are trying to hijack Web3, which is also something I've noticed other companies do as well, right? Like Adidas had an NFT drop where they were also selling NFT images. I think when the new Geometrics came out, they dropped a bunch of NFTs that people could buy. So yeah, I think that's with anything that's new and hip, all the big companies are gonna do their best to get with the times. So not surprised. Do I care if apps are decentralized? Centralization is convenient, says Brown. Web3 is likely to be a place for niche groups, people who are developing new ideas. The goal of many such undertakings is to become a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organizations, effectively thousands of users governing a project through chat groups and their tokens. I think a DAOs will be as ubiquitous as companies, clubs, non-profits, and different kinds of official organizations. I think DAOs will be as ubiquitous as companies, clubs, non-profits, and different kinds of official organizations, says Maria Shen at venture capital firm Electric Capital. Okay, so there is one person who's saying that these are just going to it's going to be a niche, it's not going to be a big thing, and then this person is saying it's going to be there everywhere. What are the downsides? Although Web3 is often described in terms of idealistic cooperatives, decentralization can also be a cover for businesses as usual with less accountability. Regulators are raising concerns about some of the projects, particularly the decentralized finance or DeFi apps that let people lend, borrow, and trade coins with each other, often without verifying users' identities and performing anti-money laundering checks. Many teams of developers claim they aren't responsible because they have passed control onto the users. Yeah, this is what annoys me about a lot of platforms. And like people are saying that, hey, we are just giving you the platform. What the users do on the platform is not our responsibility. This has been the take of a lot of the tech companies for the longest time. I remember a couple of years back when a lot of people were organizing riots and stuff on Facebook and Twitter, and there was a lot of hate speech going on. Um, then these were like, hey, we are just building, offering the platform. What happens on the platform is not something that's within our control. And there was a very hands-off approach that people were having, of course, which got a lot of backlash, to which now they have started censoring and stuff like that, which is also getting a backlash. So I'm not sure what is the right way here, but I do find it very weird when people who are building these tech platforms, they're like, hey, we're just building the platform. What people do on the platform is none of our business. I think that is a slippery slope, because then yeah, people will abuse it. And then I think there needs to be some thought that needs to be put in to see how can this be minimized in any way possible. Because if not, yeah, then you are going to go into a place where from it will be very hard to come back, right? So I think that's why we should not just say that it's a platform, and what people do on it is not our concern. I think you should be concerned if there is grave sort of or consequences that could happen because of the platform that you have built. What are these dirty little secrets that no one talks about? Says Aviva Litan, an analyst speculating in blockchain at researcher Gartner Inc. Right now, a DeFi is run by centralized companies. Huh, interesting. But the difference is you can't stop the protocols. You can arrest the people, the regulators can put them in jail, but you can't stop the protocols. Exactly. So that's what it is trying to say. So it's saying that even though you're doing the transactions on app, right? You need to have like a Coinbase or any of the wallet apps, any of these trading apps that allow you to trade bitcoins, that allow you to send and receive it. Those are still centralized organizations. They are still a private entity which has a business model. That's what you're using to send them, right? But of course, they don't own the protocol. They don't own the Bitcoin sort of the protocol. So that's why even if you even if any of these companies shut down, your money is still safe with you, because you still own that address. You still are able to very easily port to another app and still able to do the transaction. So they don't own a protocol itself. They're basically an interface that makes it easy for you to send and receive money. But yeah, there's no way for for the government to stop these companies, or to stop the transactions, because the transactions are not dependent on the companies, but on the blockchain and the protocol that is running underneath it. There are environmental concerns about huge amount of computing power some of the blockchains require, though newer systems may ease that. Yeah, this is something that people have been talking about a lot as well, because the way Bitcoin and Ethereum, they were built early on, that means you need to be able to solve these cryptographic puzzles in order to verify your transactions. And over time, the complexity of these just keep increasing, because of which the amount of effort needed to solve them, amount of computing or power that you need to solve them, has just gone up. That is the process that is known as minting. So when you have to mint something new, you need to have a processor that is able to do these computing action, which means that you need big ass servers in order to be able to do it. And over a period of time, the requirement of that has just constantly gone up, and that brought in an environmental concern, because running these big servers requires energy, and a lot of these energies is just going for people to verify a transaction. So people very rightly raise that as a concern, and that's one of the drawbacks of Bitcoin and Ethereum that people are talking about. But they have found solutions to ease that. where they've changed the way these transactions are going to be verified. There are of course different people solving it in different ways, but yeah, there are ways to solve this in software. But that is still a concern that we should definitely keep having, so that we don't go back to this, like to the same old ways. And with much of the code created in all-nighters, software bugs, and a malicious hacking abound, many projects don't even list contact numbers, though they may contain online chat groups. If you accidentally mistype or send the money to the wrong account, it may be lost forever. Yeah, yeah, that's the thing, right? If you send money to someone through a bank, you can always ring up the bank and say, oops, sorry, I made a mistake, was not supposed to just send money to this person. And the bank owns both, like the system on both the accounts, they can actually get your money back into your account. You do that on Bitcoin, on the blockchain, it's gone forever until the other guy who owns that wallet is nice enough to be like, I think it came to be by mistake, I'm going to return it. Or maybe that wallet address doesn't even exist. Yeah, then that money is definitely gone. You won't be able to resolve the problem like you would be by calling a bank's customer service line. Exactly. um, but I think the other part about hacking and software bugs, that's also something that is concerning equally, because it's going to be entirely software dependent, right? The idea is to make it decentralized and autonomous. That means no human can influence it, which is definitely for good reason. So you are taking out the bias of a human that will be brought in, the aspect of human error that will be brought in. I think that is a good thing, but also it's a bad thing because software is never perfect. There is gonna be bugs in it, but also vulnerabilities. There will always be somebody looking for a loophole, looking for a way to exploit that, looking for a way to get in and to hack it. Of course, this could be resolved by a large extent, but yeah, there's always going to be like a concern saying that this is not foolproof, right? It's happened in the recent past where people who owned very expensive NFTs, their accounts were hacked, and their NFTs were stolen. So if you have this a digital art which is very expensive, it's much easier to steal the digital art because you just need to be able to figure out how to hack one of these trading sort of, or platforms in order to hack it, as opposed to if the artwork was in a museum, then you need a whole Ocean's 11 crew for people to go in and steal it. But if you have it on a digital platform, you just need one really smart and persistent guy to be able to figure out how to break that code. And yeah, so it is a software. So at the end of the day, there will be ways to break into it, which is a concern that also needs to be addressed as to if somebody steals your digital art, what is the legalese around it. Like, so if somebody comes to my house and steals a painting I own, I know I can go to the police, I can file a report, and they will do their best to find that guy. If I have your evidence, if I have your security tapes, there are stuff that can be done, that can be done in a legal way. But if somebody stole my digital art, I don't know what the recourse is. I go to the police? What happens? Like, I have no way to know who this person is. That person could be anywhere in the world. He could be outside of the jurisdiction of the police I'm talking to. So how do you solve for that? So I think that is something that is a concern. So that, like sort of malicious intent of people to hack it, and since it's software, it's never going to be 100% foolproof. Many Web3 ventures have few paying customers but can gain from the appreciation of the underlying token, making them vulnerable to a market. Take Picnic & Co., which employed about 30 people and operates 2 data centers supporting Filecoin. It makes money generating FIL tokens, which have almost doubled in value this year, but they're down 82% since April's peak. CEO Kevin Huyn, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your second name, Kevin Huyn, says he has customers in pilot programs who will eventually start paying him. He made a big bet on Web3. He trained on he trained as a surgeon before diving into Picnic and liquidated his 401k and gathered small contributions from about 70 relatives to get started. I think it's going places, he says. All right, pretty good article. I think a good, like primer on Web3. I think it gives us enough fodder to sort of start putting this piece together. So yeah, I think the problem is that with Web3, we still don't know what are the things it could do. So what are the kind of things it will make. So I think I'm gonna definitely say it's gonna be a DAOs is the way to. I think that's gonna become the what of the Web3, right? So from static pages to social media to decentralized autonomous organizations. I'm just gonna call it DAO. I think it's open enough. So I think that's what is gonna become. So it's not gonna be social media. It's gonna be decentralized organizations. So at least that's the promise of Web3, is that it'll be a decentralized organizations, and of course they will do a whole range of things. There will be a social media which operates as a DAO, but there could be very well a bank that operates as a DAO. I was a part of a DAO very recently, which was a DAO which was looking to purchase a copy of the US Constitution, where everybody was putting money. I think they raised over 45 million dollars, and the idea was to purchase the Constitution of America in an auction by the Sotheby's, and then we as a DAO will decide what to do with this Constitution. Will it be put in a public place? Will it be taken on a roadshow across like the world? Will it just be burnt? Like we could vote on what to do with the DAO. So I think that was a very interesting concept. I think there will be other more practical applications that will come up with Web3, but I think they will all be decentralized, because I think that is the big promise of Web3. So that's the what, right? So any future. All right, let me break down. I think I've been beating on the bush, but let me break down what my definition of Web3 is with this understanding. Cohort. I think Web3 is a decentralized platform built on blockchain. That's easy enough, right? That's what it is, right? So anything that is a decentralized platform built on a blockchain. So if you're building a decentralized platform built on a blockchain to do anything, right? You can, like I said, you can build a bank, you can build a social media, whatnot. But as long as it's decentralized and if it's built on a blockchain, then it comes under Web3. So I think that's a good short definition, right? But yeah, Web3 is not that. Web3 is not a platform in itself. So Web3 refers to what is a good term? To a group. So a decentralized platform built on a blockchain. So that's what Web3 refers to. So Web3 refers to web made of decentralized platform built on a blockchain, or Web3 refers to the next iteration of World Wide Web made up of decentralized platforms built on blockchain. I think that's a good one. Web3 refers to the next iteration of World Wide Web, made up of decentralized platforms built on a blockchain. So I think this is the big aspect of it. Decentralized platforms built on a blockchain is what Web3 is, right? I think that's a clear definition. Let me know if you agree and or if you don't in the chat. But yeah, if you're building a decentralized platform on a blockchain, then you will be considered a Web3 company, right? Like if you're doing these two things, that's how you are a Web3 company, if you're building these two things. Right? Yeah. Let's think of some examples, right? Like who are building these things. So I think there are a bunch of NFT trading platforms, of course. So there is Foundation. I think the biggest one is OpenSea. If you guys probably know, so OpenSea is a place for people to buy and sell NFTs. So it's an NFT or marketplace. So anybody who does anything is now on this. Of course, you probably have heard of the Bored Ape Yacht Club, where people could buy these images of a bored ape. And you can see the prices. It's crazy. These were super expensive. I think Eminem just bought one for like $1 million or something. So yeah. So OpenSea is the platform which is just a place for people to buy and sell NFTs. Some other ones are also Foundation is one. So this is a one. I like this one because it has a pretty neat UI to buy and sell. So for example, Visualize Value, whom you probably know, who makes a bunch of really good visualizations, very popular. You can see he makes these arts which are also being sold on this website at the moment. And it's interesting. He's doing, for example, a collection where he's just making these, explaining things in three circles, which is fascinating. No, oh yeah, I love this dude. So basically, he's using sort of three circles to explain different concepts. So he's saying that this is time, which starts with a full circle, goes into half, and then goes to zero. So that's passing of time. Nice. This, he says, is a practice. So where you make a weird circle, nice circle. So I think it's a weird circle, a slightly improved circle, and then you make a nice circle. So practice improves you, I think. Perspective. So looks like a straight line, turns around, looks like a oval, turns around, looks like a circle. Nice. So it shows how your perspective can change your opinion of things. Experience. So that's a dotted line gets fuller and eventually becomes a circle. Interesting. Conviction. Let's see, conviction. So it says you have convictions, which means you want different bunch of things, then you decrease your options until you have just one thing that you want. Is that what he's trying to say? Because conviction is basically you really focused on wanting something, right? Is that the correct understanding of conviction? Conviction, a formal declaration of verdict, or no, a firmly held belief or opinion. She takes pride in her political conviction. So yeah, a firmly held belief or opinion. So something I believe very firmly. So I think, yeah, so it says how you've believed, I think, a whole bunch of things, then you believed on just two things, and then you firmly believed in one. Yeah, I think this one is for me a little vague. If somebody has a good explanation, please let me know. Presence. Ooh, this is nice. Presence. It says this is past, this is the future, this is the moment, this is where you're living. So everything else is a blur. Be focused on what's happening right now. Nice. But see, yeah, these are not super expensive, but yeah, I'm pretty sure by the time the bid ends, it's gonna go crazy. So it's like half ETH, which is still pretty expensive. That's like $20,000. Yeah, what is ETH price right now? ETH to USD. Oh, it's 3,000 USD. So this is like 1,000. So it's like $1,000 right now, which is neat because usually his artwork sells for a lot more. Meta, he has this new artwork as well, which is basically, I think, a play on Facebook's rebrand. It's nice. But yeah, if you look at some of his other artworks, they've sold for quite a lot. Also, these are his two collections. Interesting. Let's see what are in this. Oh damn, he just made like all the alphabets and he sold them. Then people just bought alphabets. That's crazy. People paid 2.4 ETH. So people paid like 7,000 bucks for the letter Z. Insane. Who bought this? No. Oh no, no one bought this. Reserve price. Oh, no one bought Z so far. So if you pay 2.4 ETH, it could be yours. Interesting. So, but all of these other things have been bought by people. So, see, this guy called Richard was like, I'm gonna buy the letter R for 0.6 ETH. So, for about 1,500 bucks, I'm gonna buy this alphabet. Crazy. But I think NFTs are a whole other episodes. I'm digressing. I think my ADHD is showing. So let's get back to this. So OpenSea is a good example. OpenSea, but yeah, these are all NFT marketplaces. So I said foundation. What else? I think Coinbase, which is I think a representative of a subset of the subset of the trading apps. So you probably have all heard of Coinbase by now. They just recently did an IPO, but it's a place to buy and sell Bitcoin, right? So if you want to purchase Bitcoin, to purchase any, like a crypto, this is where you go. So it's like the Robinhood of crypto. You can also purchase crypto on Robinhood. But yeah, this is where you buy, and of course they show you the promise that it's always going to be an upward tending curve. So yeah, these are one of the. I think this is like the not most a popular one, but yeah, there are like a bunch of people who are building these trading apps. I think then there is wallets. There are a lot of people who just make a wallet for you to store both your cryptocurrencies and your NFTs. The one that I like a lot because of their design, it's a very fun one. It's called Rainbow Wallet. So I think folks like this, which is just a very simple app, I think this is for me the very representative of Web3. Did you see what just happened? Like as soon as I press on it, it breaks out into a like rainbow. So as soon as I hit my mouse, it does this. It's like this fun little thing. They're very emoji dependent, so they always talk in emojis, which I think like this company, or the vibe of this company is very reminiscent of the vibe of Web3 in general. Like this is basically, if you look at a project or a DAO, or the way people talk about Web3, all the people who are like the big influencers in the Web3 space, this is basically their language, which is basically very, you're playful, so they're not taking themselves too seriously, which is, they're just thinking of this thing as a plaything, but there is big changes happening behind it. So it seems like a website that was like put together by a teenager, but that's very intentional because that's the vibe that they want to represent, because that sort of is what Web3 is about at the moment. It's still very early, it's still very, very nascent, it's still a toy with a lot of your promise for the future. And I think that sort of is why it's exciting, because it feels like you are just scratching the surface of something new. But yeah, see, this is like a fun new vibe. So I'm gonna also add Rainbow to this. So that's the wallet app. Anything else? Any other Web3 apps that I think is not represented here? Let me know. I think because that is what everybody is like waiting for. Like, what's the big value add example of it? But yeah, it does seem like a very interesting concept that a lot of people can adopt in the future. And then who is it for? Consumers, creators, but I think the big thing here is owners, right? So I think that's what the promise is, that you go from being a consumer to being a creator, and then in Web3 you go from being a creator to an owner. So you own your NFT, you own your coins, you own the money. So it's not owned by the platform. Tomorrow if the platform don't exist, you still own the Bitcoin that you own. So nobody can dictate whether you own the Bitcoin or not. I think that's the big promise, which I think is what is translating into your DAOs as well, where you own the platform, you own the social media that you're active on. So if you're active on your Blue Sky, you own a part of it and you own the right to change it. So if something that your Blue Sky is doing you don't agree with, and if there is a majority of people who hold the tokens of your Blue Sky and they don't agree with it, they have the right to change it. And I think that sort of is the interesting part, is that you can actually own aspects of it. So like think of how it could translate into other businesses, right? Like if you go to that your previous article where it says every company is now an internet company, and like if we say every company of the future is going to be a Web3 company, which means by our definition is if every company is going to become a decentralized sort of like platform built on a blockchain, how that would evolve. So if you go buy a car from your Tesla, they also give you your tokens depending on which car you bought, how much did you get your tokens issued by your Tesla, which could then give you rights to vote on certain aspects of your Tesla. So because how, as a shareholder of Tesla, so if I do buy stocks of Tesla, there are a few things I get the right to vote on, right, depending on how much stock I own. And here they're trying to sort of, and in this it will not depend on you owning a stock of Tesla, but let's say if you are a user of Tesla, if you are the guy who is in a Tesla your car your day in and like day out, you're a user, you're an owner of a Tesla car, then you also get a token from Tesla, and then you get a right to like vote on what should they be focusing on next. This could be an interesting dynamic as well, to see if such a decentralized way of building a companies would work. Of course, that's not the way I believe companies should be run. I definitely do not believe innovative companies should be a democratic one. I don't think innovation is something that comes out of a democracy. I don't think design should be done by a committee. So I am not somebody who is in favor of making decisions in a decentralized way. I think there should be centralized decision making, so that a vision can be implemented and innovation can be done. That is something that I really passionately believe. So I'm not saying that this is the solution, or it's going to like result in better organizations, but I do find it very interesting that this is a very different way to run organizations, which maybe does not make sense for a company like I would say like Tesla, but there are other organizations that for whom it could make a lot more sense, right? So if you think of an NGO, or if you think of any organization that depends on a crowdsourced way of operating, then it could make a lot of sense, right? The thing that immediately pops to my head is Amul, right? So Amul is based on a cooperative society business model, where every person who produces milk, so every a farmer who is giving your milk to Amul, they actually get a voting right of the decisions that Amul as a company is making. So Amul, for those of you who don't know, is an Indian dairy brand. It's a dairy, you're like a cooperative society. So if you're from someone from India, you know that they make stuff like cheese to milk. So anything that's based around your milk, or around a dairy, so they make it. They're a pretty good brand, pretty big brand. They are also known. So they used to sell butter, and on the back of the butter they will have a cartoon, and that's become like a very iconic pop culture thing, because they will always have some sort of a political or like a meme in it. Basically that was like the OG of memes. So Let me show you. So it was by the Amul girl, and then she will usually be on the back of it, and they will have, like memes like this. They will say things which is fun. So Neymar, does something in football, so they will have something around that. Or if we win a match, they will have, or win a cricket match, they will have this. So they used to do these things. And again, I'm going off topic, but the point I was making was Amul was a cooperative society. So everybody who gave like milk to build these things, they were also owners in the decision making that happened. So this was, I think, one of the original decentralized society. But I think what happens with a DAO is that this same your model can now happen, but with a software being the underlying infrastructure. So there are no humans ensuring that this is happening, but the software and the code will ensure that a decentralized decision making is happening in organizations like this. So I think that could be where it could be the most effective. What could you do? So you could read, of course. You can still be a consumer, so no one's gonna stop you. That I think there will always be your consumers in addition to the creators. So you can read, you can write or create, and what you could also do is own. I think that's the new addition that Web3 brings it. So if you make something, you own it, right? If you are somebody who is making a meme, which is amazing, the way some of these people are able to come up with memes immediately. But if you make it, then you own your meme, and everybody who wants to purchase that meme can actually pay you for it, and you actually get your money, and you actually get proof of ownership of the meme that you make. So I think that's a very interesting aspect of Web3. Business model, I think that's still up to debate. I think the tokens was what the articles mentioned, but I'm not sure how that translates to money, right? How does that translate to the survival of the business itself? Because right now, almost all of these companies are mostly venture capital funded. So they're not really that focused on revenue generation at the moment, but that will come at some point. So it could either be a commission based stuff. I think that's how your Coinbase and OpenSea and all of these marketplaces can make money, is just taking a commission of all the transactions that happen on them. But yeah, I would be interested in seeing if there are more innovative business models that could also be built within these. Yeah, let's go into these. I think we spoke a lot about the foundations of it, but let's just try to wrap it up and build it here. So it's decentralized. Everybody, yeah, I think I'm just gonna keep it very short. Decentralized, built on blockchain, and I think the and the way it was. I think these are the two foundations, right? Like decentralized, built on blockchain, coded in software. I think that's important because it's like not decentralized. I think built on blockchain covers it mostly. I think that's it. These are the two foundation elements of it. And I think opportunities are like all the things that we spoke about, like so like the DAOs, the dApps, NFTs, DeFi. I think all of these are like in its own things to talk about. But I think, yeah, like the kind of examples we were just talking about, that stuff that could happen with Tesla, with Amul, I think those are all very interesting opportunities that it can explore. But for this to become the next big internet level, like sort of off like trend and a medium for disruption, it needs to address the few challenges that it has, right? So I think one of the big was the vulnerability. So that includes hacking and bugs. I think that's gonna be a concern, and that's gonna be a challenge that people will have to constantly be on a lookout for. The other one is gonna be like bad actors and malicious intent. How do you stop that? How do you stop money laundering happening? Because you are able to bypass your sort of your regulations, which is both a good thing. For example, I was denied a bank account recently because they were afraid I'm going to because of my like of residence status in this country. They were like, yeah, we're not sure if you will not uh, like launder some money, right? Like, and there was no way for me to appeal that. There was no way for me to prove that I'm not going to be involved in that. uh, and that for me was like a very sort of like archaic regulatory thing, which is just not like in with the times. So in that case, I'm very excited that with DeFi, with decentralized finance, we don't have to deal with these age-old regulations. But yeah, there will be people who will intend to launder your money, and we need to figure out how to solve that. And I think the final challenge, which I do want to also think about more deeply, is that uh, right now the people, there is a lot of hype around Web3 as well, right? Like everything that we're talking about, all these opportunities and stuff, they are very largely driven by hypes, right? Like the reason NFTs are so popular is because of the hype around NFTs. Like, somebody bought a piece of, like a JPEG image for 1 million, or they bought something that you could very easily right click and save, and that's what an image. So I think all of that really adds to the hype. And what something that I'm very thoughtfully thinking of, and something that is coming up a lot, is the fact that is that the fact of like there's a lot of a venture capital fund being poured into this right now. Like a lot of these big venture capital firms are very heavily investing in companies that are using the term Web3, and with that comes the downside of there being a hype, which means it could just be a bubble that is building up, and this venture capital firm are purposefully inflating this bubble so that they get a return on their investments. So for those of you who don't know, venture capital firms basically they work on investing in a company, they get equity for it, and then once the company has an exit, whether it's either acquired by somebody or whether it is if it has an IPO, they get a return on the investment. And what this could lead to is people just hyping it up to the point where their like return on the investment is as high as possible, and after an exit they're not really as passionate about the technology, but they just wanted to make more money. And that is a serious like concern, because that has happened in the past where some technology was just bloated, or made up to be a lot more than it was. I think recent examples that comes to mind would be there was big hype around AR and VR, right? Like that was the next big thing, and that was the hot thing to be about. But that's often not the But the hype was much more than what the reality was. The hype was that you just gonna live in this metaverse already, and everything is gonna be online. That was the hype that we were sold. But the market, sort of like all the performance of any of the companies that people invested at the time was not as high. So I think the VC hype is something we definitely need to be mindful of, because all of these people in the Bloomberg article, including folks like Dixon, they're very heavily invested in all of these companies. They're very heavily invested millions of dollars in Web3 startups. So that always brings the risk that they are talking very highly about the promise of Web3 in order to serve their own interests, right? If you are able to hype it up enough, maybe everybody will sort of will buy into it, and that's how you are able to make an exit. So they have very strong interest in hyping it up, and that's for me sort of a concern, and that's why I am approaching it in a cautious way, saying that okay, all of this hype could be artificial hype, and maybe underneath it Web3 is not the next big solution. So I think that is something that is also a challenge, that once the dust settles on it, we need to actually see how much of the hype is actually something that we need to be focused on. So I think those sort of sum up the challenge of Web3. Let me paste that Bloomberg article here as well. Maybe all of these that I've opened up actually. No, where was the Bloomberg article? I got it here. Oops. What is that article called? Okay, what else do you need? We did need the links to all these websites. No, you can Google them, they're not hard to find. I think, yeah, I think everything else is good. Cool. All right, I think I hope that was helpful in a way of getting a good summation of, or at least a good basic understanding of what Web3 is. I think we did cover a lot of different aspects of Web3, like really digging into the definitions, the background, what are the foundations elements, the opportunities, the challenges. I think we did not sort of like often touch upon all of these. I think it gives us a good background to really deep dive into some of these topics in the next phases. So as we develop on it, develop understanding around it, let's just we can actually see all of these opportunities and explore them individually to see what is the merit in any of them, and maybe do some hands-on stuff, right? Like let's purchase an NFT and let's see how the process is of purchasing an NFT. Let's like make some NFTs of our own and let's see how that happens. How can you actually put your art on the blockchain? I think we can really deep dive into a lot of these things, and we can learn about a lot of these things together. And let's see, like and I think let's experience beyond the hype what the future holds. So that's it. I think I would wrap up the thing now. I hope all of you had a wonderful time during the stream. I think this one was long. It's more than 2 hours, this stream. I think which is more reminiscent of the kind of streams I want to do. Really not in a hurry and like really taking our time to go through things and break it down. So I hope it was educational. I hope you had a good time hanging around. And I think as I do more of these, I will be able to build more structure around it and be able to make it more easily digestible. But yeah, I did go into it with the expectation that the first few will be just me still figuring things out. So I hope you can be a bit patient with me if things are not always super structured, but the idea is to improve like week on week. So yeah, if you don't see improvement, then definitely let me know, and but do offer your feedback and stuff about what you would like to improve or how differently would you like me to talk about things, and we can take it from there. But for now, I wish you all a really good evening. I hope you can maybe follow up on some of these learnings and explore new things yourself. And if you guys also want to come on and have a chat with me, and or you have suggestions for stuff that you found out that you would like me to explore as well, I'm always open to it. But for now, thank you so much. Have a good evening, and I will see you next week, same time. Until then, peace.